I just want to preface by saying that there is, for me at least, every year this changes how I grade, and it all just depends on the people who are in front of me and what they're working on and how they work, and how much I feel like I have to be on them about the details. Some years I have kids that are picking up the details and doing everything, and I don't have to have as much oversight. And then some years I have kids that really need more of that management, and I have to put in a few more checkpoints. And of course, this year is going to look unlike any other. So that, I'm just going to assess what I can before we start the year, figure out how I'm going to assign stuff and grade from there. But just like everybody else, there will be times when I need daily grades because my administration is saying, hey, you don't have enough daily grades, or I don't know if you have this on your campus where you have to have a certain amount of test grades by a certain point in the grading period. And sometimes I don't work that way. I'm more dictated by my own deadlines and things that I have to turn in. So I have to do a little shifting and think about, okay, well, everything can be a grade. Dropping in the photos is a grade. Getting the captions in, even if they're rough, that's a grade. All of that comes down to a grade, and that helps me honor what I have to do for my campus, plus add the oversight so that the kids know they're not just out there procrastinating or not using their time. A lot of what we do is time management too, and that's where grading comes in. Kelly, you want to add anything to that too?
Yeah. So, hey everybody, welcome to grading. What a fun thing to start off your roundtables. So we've got the chat active on the side. So as you guys are thinking of things, whether it's a question that you would like to just get some feedback on, I won't say that we have all the right answers, but maybe collectively we can help steer a direction. So questions in the chat, or if you have something that you would like to share with the group as a best practice or something that's worked for you, we'll keep monitoring that. But as a roundtable, this is a little flexible kind of style of meeting. With grading, I have done all the variations of grading. One year I even had where every single thing that a kid did, from wearing their yearbook t-shirt to putting their initials on their photo submissions, every tiny little thing was worth like a certain amount of points. And I will tell you that was a terrible year because that was so much to keep up with. But I've gone from that extreme of every tiny little thing to, by the end of 8-9 years, I was doing the minimum number of grades required by my district, which was 1 a week. So if the district said I had to have 1 grade a week, then by golly, my max was 1 a week. And so I didn't do any more than that. So I've kind of gone the wide range. But like Velisa said, it depends on the year. It depends on the kids. This is not this is how it's going to happen every year kind of thing. So we are here to talk through some stuff with you, but it's going to change no matter what. It's going to change year to year. It's going to change kid to kid. But we'll pull over here in the chat, and Velisa, I'll call out some of the questions.
Yeah, I see one right there. If you don't mind, I was gonna. Rachel said it's common in my school to split a class by assessment and classwork, 60-40, which is actually my split. That's the split that we do. That 40 is the classwork. I was just doing the scope and sequence. So if I give them a daily assignment, like, show me how to write a formal email, that's a daily assignment. That's fine. Now, the 60%, the test grade part, that's usually their spreads. The deal is that I'm super flexible. That's also their photo assignments. Let me back up. That's their photo assignments. Now, in a typical year, every 9 weeks, my kids have to do 2 photo assignments. Now, I have a staff of about 40, okay? They have to do 2. They have these little photo receipts that they turn in, that they show me where they went, what they shot, and where it is. We have a big calendar. They sign up for stuff. I we're going to proceed that this year the same way. It's just going to look different. The events that we have to cover are going to look different. So your 2 events is 2 test grades. Now, when it comes to the spreads, though, I am very flexible. Again, my kids don't know my final deadline for any, like that date for any deadline. I don't want them to know it, because then they're going to work to the last minute, and that doesn't work for me. But when a kid turns in a spread, I print it. I highlight on there the things that are wrong or the things that were blank. I love it when they say I'm done, except, and then there'll still be filler text, or there'll be a missing photo. No, you're not done. If you were done, there wouldn't be a missing photo. But I'll go through and I'll circle it, and I might say, this is a 60 or this is a 70. This isn't, I couldn't print this. I couldn't sell this to anybody, which is kind of the way I have to frame it for them. Would you pay money to look at this? It has a missing photo. It has, a lot of misspellings and stuff like that. And I will usually put that in the grade book, but I'm going to let them fix it for full credit. Okay. Because I have to print an A. I can't print a C. I can't print a D. I don't want to print a B. I have to print an A. So unlike the math teacher that's only going to let them take the test and that's it, and they can only earn back half credit or something for making corrections, I'm going to let them go and fix it for full credit, because I have to print an A. And honestly, after we do that a couple of times, they are so sick of me being on their case that their margin of error gets slimmer. It's kind of like my own children. They get so upset with me asking them to rinse their dishes that now they just do it, because they just don't want to hear me ask about it anymore. So that's the same kind of thing. You have to, they're going to be so annoyed with you asking that they're going to learn to just do it the way you want to do it. And I am flexible with that. Eventually we might get to a point though where someone hasn't done what they're supposed to do and it has to be passed off to an editor. That's a different conversation. That's when the grade sticks. I do have I am an elective. I'm not a fine art. Kids that take me have to really choose to take me. And I do get kids that are in dance and band and all those other things. When I am looking at dropping in grades, I am also thinking about eligibility dates. I want there to kind of be a warning, like, hey, this kid isn't necessarily doing it. And usually a coach is going to pick up on that, but I don't want to sink them. Okay. Because I want them to come back. I want them to enjoy the class. And so I kind of have to strike a balance that way. Like I said, I'm not a career in tech credit. I'm not a fine art. I am an elective. So, and nobody really needs my class. So I need them to want to come to me. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm Rachel. I'm the one who asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, so then when you're reviewing the spreads, you review all 400 pages of your yearbook?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, but remember, it's by deadline. So usually by October, I'm reviewing maybe 32. And,
Okay.
and then by November, it's more. But yeah, I'm looking at everything, because ultimately it's on me. I'm the one that uploads the PDFs and does all of that. It's me. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So someone asked, let's see. Sorry, I'm pressing a lot of buttons. So someone had asked if we could use the curriculum as well for grading. And I think the curriculum is really, am I showing up? Where am I at? Oh, hey, look, okay. So I think the curriculum is really great with building those foundational skills. But I try not to grade anything that's not creating the book. And so I want, I want everything to be towards that purpose of, the captions for the book or the photos for the book or something that's going toward making the book. And sometimes doing curriculum work or like a worksheet or something is really just reinforcing skills. And so I try as much as possible not to use that as my grading framework. Someone else had asked about categories, which Velisa mentioned this as well. What categories do you use when you are grading? So it really depends on how your district requires you to do grades. Some districts have, major grades and minor grades, or so many daily grades and so many test grades. With mine, I could do 100% daily grades. And so I didn't have to have anything else differentiated as a test or anything like that. And so I actually had the kids once a week, since I had to have one grade a week, I would have them do a self-assessment, and what they gave, this is this is how much I dislike grading. What they gave themselves is pretty much what I gave them. And if I felt like they were very off on their self-assessment, like we would have a conversation about that. But it becomes really difficult when you have kids who are editors doing certain tasks, and then you have photographers doing different tasks, and you have writers doing different tasks, and you have second level and third level all in one classroom. And so that's really difficult to differentiate. And so I just made it easy on myself and said, everyone does a weekly production report. You tell me what you accomplished this week and how it went, and that's your grade. And that honestly worked really well for my style of program and my personality and the kids that I had. But Velisa, do you want to talk any more about categories?
Same thing. I was looking at the chat. I can't have words today, sorry. But I'm like distracted by the tech. I'm trying to make sure we're doing this right.
You're doing chat.
Okay, great. Okay. No, I mean, it's 60-40. I saw someone said that they do like 3 test grades. Like I said, mine's usually about 3. For us, the big deal is how soon, like they don't want us to go 3 weeks without having a test grade. So on my campus, they're not only watching how many, but they're watching when. And then, like I said, personally, I'm also watching UIL eligibility dates. That's a huge one for a lot of our kids. Sometimes, and I saw somebody said they had a yearbook that was just 104 pages, or they had a small book and they were, how would you do that? I would make every little thing an assignment. I mean, an extended caption, there's a lot to get right and a lot to get wrong. Make that a test grade. Everyone has to do, one extended caption that they're contributing to that. You're just going to have to divide up the work a little differently. I liked what you were saying about, like, is it skills based? Is it reviewing skills? Sometimes I do that kind of stuff, though. I will say, like, let's say I have a spread and I've assigned 2 people to a spread because I think these 2 people need to tackle this spread together, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, depends on the kid. Okay. So I go into the situation thinking it's going to work. And then I have one kid who's doing all the work and one kid who is always on TikTok but not doing any work, and they're not showing up to get the photos at the new Burger King or whatever, but they managed to make like 20 TikTok videos that day. I mean, I get a lot of students coming to me, through a deadline cycle, Ms. Jewett, we have to talk about this person. They're not doing their work. I'm sure you've heard this. If you haven't taught, you will hear this. They like to tell when the other person isn't doing their work, and that helps. But that's when sometimes having those other skill-based things kind of help me, because if the student isn't doing this work, they're not going to do the individual work. So then I have documentation to go to a parent or a coach or just in the grade book and say, look, you were even assigned these individual things and you didn't do them. So yeah, I mean, it's, you shouldn't have a D in your book, yet here we are. So that's kind of, sometimes that's how it happens. And I have every now and then a student who just isn't doing it, even with everything that we put in place. And that happens. You can't, that's just gonna happen. I'm trying to see, was there another question, Kelly, that?
Yeah, no, there's tons. We've got lots of questions, so we'll just keep the list. If I'm trying to make sure that we get all the major categories of things that you guys are asking about. Shelly asked about that her administration really only supports enforcing grades or deadlines on in-class
during the school day.
Yeah, and not holding kids accountable to outside of school. And I will say that in the past, I've had some students who, for whatever reason, they can't do things outside of school. So you might be in the boat this year. You have this situation, like it is what it is for this year. As much as possible, I've tried to build the program so that the expectations are clear in advance before kids sign up that, hey, there's going to be some outside of class things. There's going to be some weekend things or night things. And we try to make that really obvious. But sometimes you end up with a kid in there and they can't do the stuff that they need to do. I will say that there are plenty of things to do in class. But there are also things that could be done at home, just like homework, like you would for math homework. You take your textbook home and you do your math problems. Well, maybe the kid can't go to an event, but they could, send direct messages to people on Twitter. If you guys were watching Samantha Berry, she was talking this morning about making those connections with people, and a lot of it is through social media. So there's so much that can be done that's not being like being physically at an event. We want them to be there because that's part of the fun of being in yearbook. Like you get to be behind the scenes and like front row of everything. And so if you can't establish those expectations beforehand and you end up with kids who can't do stuff outside of school, or you don't have the support to enforce that, you just might have to be a little bit creative as far as what kind of assignments you assign them in the first place.
Right. I do have forms that I give to my staff the first week of school that says what they're expected to do, and that includes this off-campus component. Now, I know though that what the question was about though, if your administration just doesn't support that at all. I think that's just going to have to, have a conversation with your administration then about why it's important. And then though, if it's something that you have to do, I mean, if you're looking at a situation, like I think back to what Samantha Berry was talking about, crowdsourcing photos during the keynote this morning. That's another way to do it, depending on, how many photos you're trying to get. If you're talking about, a big job, then I think that comes back to having a conversation with the administration and using, if you're in Texas, using the TEKS, which is what we're supposed to be following, that shows this is our responsibility. So,
yeah. So Patrick has a question about, he has a staff that has some experienced and some new people. And so there's the question about grading, I think on the same level for both kinds of kids, that you have advanced kids and you have new kids. With my program, I was able to segment out. So we would meet in the same class time, but they would actually be like enrolled in a separate course. And so I would have an advanced journalism course and then like the intro journalism course meeting at the same time. They're the same staff. And so that was helpful as well. Different school districts are agreeable to different things. And so after maybe 5 years of trying, I was able to get my advanced journalism kids, which are the editors, they get a higher GPA. So they're on a 4.5 as opposed to a 4. And so that's, very incentivizing to those kids to do a great job, because that can really boost their GPA. So you can kind of be creative about those kinds of things for you can almost think outside of grading for recognizing those advanced kids and recognizing that, they do know more than your intro kids. So they can lead the lessons. They can help build that culture in your classroom. They can get a letter jacket. You can kind of be creative that way if you are stuck with one grading system for all of them. And I found that a lot of times the kids are super happy with the recognition of being a leader in the room and being asked what their opinion is and just helping shape that year. But as much as we can, we want to give them, stuff like higher GPAs or letter jackets or whatever.
Yeah, we just started letter jackets, if you can believe that, where we've always had UIL, but with yearbook, my yearbook kids don't compete in UIL, which if you're not from Texas, you're like, what is UIL? That's our big academic kind of meet. Like UIL does our athletes, but we also have academic. And we've always given out letters for UIL writing and stuff, but that tends to go to my newspaper kids. So we finally, in this past year, they let us come up with a point system that would include newspaper. You would not believe what a huge incentive it is for Letterman jackets. It's 105 right now in San Antonio, and they will be so excited that their Letterman jackets are in, and you'll see these kids putting on these big Letterman jackets. Never gets that cold here. The other thing, which you were talking about, giving them a little point bump, not the school district I'm at now, but the one previous, they let me give them a point bump. I had to take their district GT certification course. and I was able to give points, like an extra on their GPA, to my editors. So if you're in a district that has something like that, investigate. They might let you do that. My current district, that's not part of our plan, but the one beforehand, that was definitely something, and it was good for those kids. Like I said, I'm an elective. I'm not a fine art. I'm not a tech credit. I'm not anything. So if a kid chooses to take my class, they're possibly giving up GPA points. They're giving up another elective. They're giving up, time at their job or whatever. So I like to help them as much as I can. So
cool. So someone had asked, let's see, it was Deb. Deb asked about using rubrics for grading, and rubrics are great. Monique has been awesome over in the chat, posting links to the different grading sheets for every category of thing in your book, whether it's a spread or a story or design or any of those kinds of things. So if you are a first year advisor, use the things that are already created for you. Even I am the queen of reinventing things, because like I want to change the font or the color, or I want it to be cute like I want it. But for your first year, I would highly recommend using the things that are already in place for you, just to save your sanity. But yeah, go to Studio Balfour. Monique has some links over in the side, and you can pull some rubrics. And over time, you may find that you might move away from a rubric, or you might fine tune a rubric to be really more applicable to your program or even your specific year, especially if you're doing very specific things for theme and color and just style kinds of stuff. So those can be super helpful. Teresa asked about the self-assessment, and I am happy to share that with you guys. But don't think that it's anything brilliant, because really it's just a Google form where they list the things that they accomplished that week. It's almost like, I imagine it like an accountant or a lawyer, where every hour has to be a billable hour. So what were my yearbook billable hours, this week? So what things did I accomplish during class? What did I do outside of class? And then they just kind of write a little paragraph about like, I didn't accomplish as much as I wanted to, or I was really proud of myself. Just kind of a little, get in touch with the kids and see where they're standing. And so it's so easy. And I just do it as a Google form. Yep, sorry, go ahead. I'm going to keep writing down questions.
Okay, on my rubric, when I'm looking at the spreads, remember how I told you, like, we might have that first draft where, I'm just trying to see if all photos have been placed or whatever. I will make little mini rubrics. So it seems like, okay, I can do this. She's just asking me to do these 3 things. And then too, I'm just eyeballing, what are the first things I want to see? These 3 things. I might be doing more of them more often, but it's helping me, especially with new people, kind of, stay on top of their progress. And are they doing it right? Are they doing it wrong? Before we get to the end of the spread and they've done it completely wrong, and now I have to go in and show them how to redo it or get an editor to help them or whatever. So that's just how I would use. I tend to do little mini rubrics.
So someone asked about students taking industry certification exams. So if your program is living within CTE, you'll hear all the time, industry certs, we all need to get these kids certified, because that ties directly into Perkins money, and anything that ties into money is very important to administrators. And so you'll hear about industry certifications. The most common ones that I know of that yearbook programs use are the Adobe certifications. So you can become certified with all Adobe programs. So if you are using InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator, those are all certifications that you can work with your kids to get. There's also like the Microsoft Word and just the Microsoft Office programs that you could work through as well. And I personally have found that my really go-getter students who worked through those Adobe certifications, like they're actually putting them on their resumes. I had a kid just last year ask me, from 3 years ago, he took the certification. He was looking for a copy of his certificate because he wanted to show an internship that he was looking at in college. He wanted to show them that he was certified. And so it is valuable to them. And it's also just gratifying to know that the skills that they have learned in your program have turned into a certification. So where I place certifications is in the curriculum is after we have submitted the book in, right before spring break, we have a decent chunk of time, a month to 6 weeks, that we can work through different lessons and practice tests and things like that. And that gives us enough time to practice and prepare and take a test. And then we catch back up with, hey, the books are about to arrive, so let's do our distribution plan at the end of the year. Do you do certifications, Velisa?
No, I don't. And like I said, I don't have as much experience with the Perkins funding and the CTE. That's something we have asked about, because a lot of advisors in my district would love to get some additional funding for tech, but it's nothing we've ever been granted or been part of. So no, sorry to say. Like I said, I'm literally just an elective, so they have to enjoy it. They have to like it, that, and they do, they keep coming back. So I think, I was looking, somebody said, I like what Monique said about the major fundraiser should be the yearbook and ads. And that's the same thing. We don't sell a lot of anything else. With ads, somebody asked about, can you grade on ads? You know what? I've never done that. We do senior ads and we do a mailer, and those come back to us. So it's not like the kids are out like promoting them. I get why you would want to do that. And I want to say Monique is probably your best person to answer that, because I want to say at her program here in San Antonio, her kids, and Monique, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your students like get graded for reaching out and making connections and selling ads? Or I'm not really sure, but again, let me know if I'm wrong. Go ahead.
They did. I mostly I graded them with how much they sold in ads, and yearbooks, and I would kind of tally that all up and use it towards paying off their debt with me. If they had debt for like trips that they took, or they wanted a senior ad, or they wanted to buy a yearbook and they didn't pay anything up front, then they would use the sales and for selling yearbooks, selling ads to kind of help pay off their debt. And then anything extra, I would also just I would also grade them for the dollar amount of ads that they sold. Some years, I didn't do it all years. Like it just, like you said at the beginning, it depends from year to year on what you're going to grade them on. And there were years that I did do hard with ad sale grades. And there were some that I was just like, whatever we sell is going to go towards paying off your debt and then just funding the program. I'm not going to grade you on ads this year. So it depends.
I think something you can do, though, if you feel like you need to grade and you think you're going to get pushback, like, hey, my kid couldn't sell, X number of ads, is you can say you have to approach, this many businesses, and then they have to give you contact, or they have to give you a business card, or the person has to shoot you an email saying, yes, I did meet with this student. But you can, just put a limit out there, or a minimum. You have to have approached this many businesses for you to get full credit for your grade. Whether or not you sell is beside the point. But honestly, if you're telling a kid you have to approach this many businesses and they do it, that's casting a pretty good net that you're going to come back with something. Like I said, we mostly do senior ads. We haven't done business ads for my book.
Yeah.
But that works for us.
We have if you guys are interested in financial stuff, we have a whole roundtable tomorrow at 3. And so we can get pretty deep into that, because I have lots of opinions about finances and things. Like somebody asked, can we expect them to sell 10 dozen burritos, for example? I have a whole philosophy on, if somebody could buy something from me with change, I'm not going to bother selling that. Like, I only want the big dollar stuff. So if you want to talk more about that, we'll talk tomorrow at 3.
Right.
Somebody else, let's see, where are we at? Somebody asked about social contracts. I wanted to make sure that we just checked in on that one. Eric asked, thoughts on having social contracts and grading based on professional behavior. And that one does get a little bit squirrely, just because grading kids on behavior is squirrely as it is. My program would fall underneath clubs and activities can enforce certain expectations, just like how your kids who are pals or student leaders are expected to not show alcohol on their, social media or things like that. So I've always had you could call it a contract to start the year that really just lays out all the things that they can expect this year, that you are a representative of our program, and so we want to represent it in a professional way. But that one gets a little squirrely. Velisa, what do you think about that?
Well, I think I do have the form that the district has, like the district has produced this kind of generic form, like you shouldn't be blah, 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 blah. And I hand that out. Socially, though, I can grade them. I was looking, somebody said with CTE has standard on professional behavior. Now that you can do, but you've got to attach it to something that is tangible. So like just in my scope and sequence presentation last hour, one of the first assignments my kids will do is writing a professional email. Okay. And once you kind of set standards like that, that's a daily grade. The form, the example I use is, if you go to Attendify and you go to the schedule, the one that I did for scope and sequence, it's one of the example forms at the bottom. It's a PDF. And so when you start saying, hey, I expect you to write an email with correct punctuation and correct capitalization and introduce yourself, and you're role playing that, how do you introduce yourself before an interview, and do daily grades for every little thing like that, then they're going to get that behavior that you expect them to behave like a professional. One of the other assignments, again, super easy daily grade, is having them call you. They know how to make TikToks. They know how to post stories on Instagram. They do not know how to use the phone. Someone in my last session talked about that you can set up a Google telephone. Like if you don't want to give them your real number, you can do this through Google. But I think what's funny is to give them the number and say, okay, on Monday night, you have to call me. This is your daily grade. You have to call me between, whatever time you set, and you have to ask me if I'm available for an interview or whatever. And then don't pick up the phone. Like have someone else in your house pick up the phone. Like have your husband, if he's game, pick up the phone, or your spouse or whatever, because then they're totally stymied. They're like, this isn't Mrs. Jewett. What, hold on, and then they have to introduce themselves. They just, but make that a daily grade. And that in a way is also enforcing that social professional behavior, especially going into this year where they're going to have to do that. I mean, if we have stretches where we're not on campus and I still need to interview, what's his name about the Eagle Scout project that he did over the summer, how am I going to get in touch with him or his mom or whatever? I'm going to have to call. So his mom's probably not on TikTok. Okay. So that, I think that goes a little bit too. They start getting your expectations the first week if you can do some of that. So let's see, what else?
We've got more questions about advertising. Someone had a really good suggestion, and I'm trying to think if I have done this in my career. I think that I have. Earning a book. And that can be through sales. If your sales are really low and you're trying to come up with some innovative ways to sell books, you could have a little, go elementary school, like get a little chart on the wall and put a sticker next to the kids' names as they sell a book. And if they get to however many you say, then they've earned a free book. And so those kinds of things I think are really good incentives if you're worried about tying a grade, especially to advertising or sales. Someone else asked about, can you grade memes that are used for advertising? Of course. I mean, that is a method of advertising. Can you grade doing a social media blast? Of course. That is part of it. It's part of selling yearbooks. And so I think that's super creative. And I think that's the thing is that we have to think about is that there's no right answer, and whatever is the need of your program this particular year, whether you really need to pump up sales or you really need to increase the number of kids who buy an ad, or, whatever it is, find the things that kids respond to and, put the incentive there. And so the incentive is usually grades. Velisa's talked about how hers is an elective, but her program is amazing. And and these kids want to be there. And so as you're building a program, you're building culture. And so while grades are important in that they tell us that we have to have grades, the main thing is creating an awesome yearbook that you can be proud of. And so whatever we do to help reinforce that, then it works.
I don't know, I know everyone has their own system, but on my campus we use Skyward. Before Skyward we used GradeSpeed. I'm sure there are other iterations of grade books out there. I use the notes a lot, you know, especially as we start getting into more, you know, this person's working on the baseball spread or basketball spread and this person's working on dance team. I will go through in the notes and I will put on there what they've been assigned. Sometimes one thing that I will do is the minute we assign a spread, I go ahead and create a major grade for it and a couple of daily grades tied to it. And then I put in there, you know, this is what you're supposed to be working on. Those kids notice it, their parents notice it. And again, it's just one more way of holding them accountable with grades as well. Okay, Kelly says 5 more minutes.
I wrote that. So someone asked, with social media blasts, are they posting to their own personal social media or the yearbook social media? I think it could be either. Most kids and their parents have been fine with our students in the program posting from their own account. Some parents get weird about it and, well, you know, they don't want it. Sometimes you have a kid that you're like, I don't know if I want you to tweet things about the yearbook from your account. And so sometimes it gets a little squirrely. You have to take it with what works for you. But with my kids, I was pretty particular about who had access to our yearbook social media accounts, just because I wanted to make sure that they weren't, you know, saying things inappropriate or starting a fight or, you know, just doing things that would make me embarrassed about them. So even if they don't post from their particular social media, maybe you have everyone come up with a slogan or a tagline or a jingle or something, and you kind of curate a whole little collection of those, and then whoever is the designated social media star can pull them out of, you know, the bag of things you've already created. So they're all contributing, but you can decide if you want them to post from themselves.
With the social media, be careful. What's that horror story? Wasn't there someone in Texas whose student had access to the Twitter and accidentally called a snow day before the district actually did it?
Yeah.
So, you know, thank goodness it was official, but they had jumped the gun and canceled school for everyone. One thing that you can do, there's some really good apps. This one's called Unfold, and you can assign, you know, kids to make stories on Unfold and then download it and send it to you so it goes to your publication social media. You know, if they think it's cool enough, they'll post it to their own, but you do have to be careful about asking students to post stuff on their own because that's their private whatever.
No, I like that idea. In the spring, I had a bunch of kids create things that I just kind of, planned it out, like I scheduled it out through a Hootsuite or something. And so I just collected them all at one time, and then I just scheduled them out to post like one a day. And that worked really well. And
it's cool. And if you use like Adobe Spark on your phone, I highly recommend Adobe Spark. Spark is cool too, because they're still using the same skills we talk about in graphic design and storytelling, just in a different medium. So these are all, you know, easy things too. I say grade everything. Nothing is too small sometimes to grade, you know. Unfold, and I'm looking at the questions. Unfold is one. Adobe Spark is another. Trying to think of what else. Canva. A lot of teachers use Canva. Canva does a lot of stuff.
I've been using Canva so much, and actually I'm a Canva convert. I'm a Canva convert. I even, I'm paying the $100 a year for the upgraded account because you can take off backgrounds really easily. And so it just is great for social media stuff.
I noticed a lot of advisors using Canva during the spring, making Twitter banners, Twitter announcements, Instagram posts. Like I saw the same one. It was actually so cute because I saw a lot of people using the one that had the megaphone, like yearbooks are almost here, please just bear with us, that kind of thing.
Awesome. All right. So we are, I think, right at, I'm at 12:44. So hope you guys got some good advice or suggestions or just made your thinking explode about grading. So at the end of the chat, we've listed a couple of things that we mentioned, Adobe Spark and Canva. If you guys have questions for us, send us a message through the app, and we are here for the next 2 days. We've got we have 2 more sessions together, Velisa, right?
Yes.
So you'll see us together a few more times if you're around. If not,
we have the fun one after lunch.
That's true. All right, guys. So we will catch you around in the next sessions that you join us with, and I think we are good to go.